Well, I didn't realize that we had
Be
that,
able
so
to
that,
put my screen up here.
well, with the pizza.
Camera's on.
I'm not gonna buy that pizza.
All right, we're all set? Okay, wonderful. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the special called board meeting for March 28th, 2026. We have established a quorum here at Coastal High School, so I'd like to welcome everyone. Thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us on a Saturday. We are also joined by Sherry Oskin, our principal, and Dr. Brian Carter, who is here to spend the day with us. We appreciate you being here, so welcome everyone. And the time is 12:34. Very good. All right. So FOIA compliance verification, the agenda was posted 24 hours in advance on the website and on the school doors. Thank you for that. The first item on the agenda is to adopt the agenda. Give you a moment to review that. Do we have a motion to accept the agenda as presented?
I know.
Suzanne, is there a second?
I'll second.
Clay, any discussion? Very good. All in favor say aye. Aye. The agenda motion is approved. The next item on the agenda are the minutes for the March 10th, 2026 meeting. And those were in the Dropbox for you, for your review. Do we have a motion to approve the minutes of the March 10th, 2026 meeting?
I move.
Tom and Suzanne seconds. Is there any discussion? Very good. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Very good. The motion carries. All right, we have two items under new business. The first item, I have printed out a copy for you. It's also in the Dropbox. We received information regarding the SIPA, which is Children's Internet Protection Act. We have legal counsel advice on that. It previously was part of our handbook. And at this time, we are no longer approving the handbook. We will instead be required to approve this policy that states requirements for the SIPA, which is the Children's Internet Protection Act, for purposes of receiving E-rate funding for internet access and internal connections. So it's an annual compliance certification and an acceptable use policy. So is there a motion to approve the SIPA annual compliance certification? You have that. I believe we have to read it in its entirety. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
For this policy. Clay, can you read that for us, please?
Yes. Based on advice of legal counsel, the following action item will be listed on March 28, 2026, special call meeting agenda. I move that the board hereby certifies that CHS is in compliance with the requirements of the Children's Internet Protection Act, SIPA, for purposes of receiving E-rate funding for internet access and internal connections. Specifically, the board affirms that 1, CHS is enforcing an internet safety policy that includes the operation of a technology protection measure or filter that blocks or filters internet access to visual depictions that are obscene or harmful to minors. 2, CHS is monitoring the online activities of minors as required by SIPA. 3, CHS has adopted and is implementing an internet safety policy addressing access by minors to inappropriate matter on the internet, the safety and security of minors when using electronic mail, chat rooms, and other forms of direct electronic communications, unauthorized access, including hacking and other unlawful activities by minors online, unauthorized disclosure, use, and dissemination of personal information regarding minors, and measures designed to restrict minors' access to materials harmful to them. 4, CHS's administration is authorized and directed to take all actions necessary to ensure timely compliance with applicable E-rate deadlines.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Jill. Is there any discussion? Very good. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Very good. Motion carries. All right. Also, this week, we received the final copy of the charter contract with the South Carolina Public Charter School District from their attorneys. That also was uploaded to the Dropbox for your review. This will go in effect on July 1st, 2026. We're excited to be a part of that authorizer family and happy to move forward with that, with them as our new authorizers. Do we have a motion to approve the South Carolina Public Charter School District charter contract going in effect on July 1st, 2026?
I move.
Tanya, there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any nays? Very good, the motion carries. Wonderful. All right, so we have checked off all the business, and we're excited now to begin the reason for our retreat. And again, thank you all for taking time out of your schedules on a Saturday. We appreciate your volunteer hours and all the time that you put in for the school. We have the good fortune of having with us Dr. Brian Carpenter. He is nationally recognized expert in risk management assessment, charter schools, and many, many more things that I'm not listing. So
that and $10 will get me a cup of coffee at any airport Starbucks.
There you go. So we're going to turn it over to you, and thank you for your
Thank you, Rita. It's good to be with you all. People always ask me, like, usually at school leaders, they're like, how do you get into this? Because it looks like a good gig, you know, you're on the road and you're meeting people and all that. And I tell them I took the direct route. So if this is what you want to do for a career, here's the direct route. Step one, I dropped out of high school when I was 17 years old. Brilliant. Wanted to do my own thing. So step two, naturally, I joined the Marine Corps, right? That started with a bad haircut and the relationship went downhill from there. Spent 7 years in the Marine Corps. I've been out now almost 40 years. It'll be 40 years next January that I've been out of the Marine Corps. You're like, dude, you don't look that old. I am. After I got out, I worked in correctional counseling for 3 or 4 years. It was really depressing, just heavy stuff. And I was like, no, this is not my jam. I got to be on the rainbow side of the equation somehow or another. And so in 1990, I got an invitation to come run a little Christian school in East Texas. In 1990, if you've ever seen the Young Sheldon series, not the Big Bang, but the Young Sheldon, that was where I lived in 1990. That community he was in, it was like they went there and documented. That was what the world was like in East Texas in 1990. I stayed in the Christian school world for about 12 years and then felt it was time to move on. And so I was exiting the Christian school world just not very much longer after charter schools started to come online. The first charter school opened in 92. I was out the door in Christian schools about a decade later. And as a Christian school administrator, I was certainly aware of charter schools, but at that time, everybody was like, what is it? Is that a private school that gets public funding? And it's funny, 30 some odd years later, I still get that question on airplanes. But I began to sort of look at, I'd see them in the newspaper, you know, like I'd see these stories like charter school administrator steals $100,000, board chair tells the press that we trusted that guy. And I'm like, well, that's obvious. Like we can tell that. And I kept seeing these stories and I kept thinking, well, I know what the board should have done there. They should have had this policy, or they should have done this practice for oversight, or this and that. And through a set of very unlikely but providential events, as I was finishing my doctorate in education, I got hired at Central Michigan University to run their university nonprofit. And I did that for 4 years, finished my doctorate, wrote 2 books. And at about that age, I was approaching the age of 50, and I was thinking, you know, I could kind of do this little game on my own. I don't know that I need the university behind me. It was helpful. And so in the worst economic downturn ever since the Great Depression, 2008, those of you remember that, I decided this would be a really excellent time to leave a very secure position, pretty well paying for a university, and, go out on my own. It was just, my life was a series of brilliant but poorly timed decisions. So in 2008, I hung out my own shingle. All my colleagues said, Brian, you're nuts. Everybody wanted that gig at CMU. And I'm like, no, it was a good gig. But I really want to kind of just do this just solo. And so that will be, everybody said you'll never make it. You'll have to go back to work. And that was 21 years, July 1st. So we're approaching the 21-year mark. So I've been doing this kind of, some variation of this. There's some variety. Sometimes I fix broken schools. I get called in to do that. Everybody knows it's broke, and they're like, hey, can you come fix it? So I'll come in and fix it. I've fixed a couple here in South Carolina, York Preparatory Academy back in the 15-16 school year, Burtis Academy just up the road in Florence in the end of 23-24 school year through the end of 25-26. So I was done there last July. And then sometimes I do like what I was doing here this week, which is a risk management assessment. I tend to view all of school stuff through the lens of risk. Like I look and I see risk, right? And it's like, okay, we should do something about that before that risk turns into actual harm to somebody. I also went back to school after my PhD and decided I wanted to study forensic accounting, and so I became a certified fraud investigator. So I've done a few fraud investigations in charter schools. I don't get a lot of calls for that, but here and there it'll pop up. And then last summer I went back to school again. Cornell had a program online for HR investigations, and some of my work has kind of morphed into HR investigations here and there. But it's all related. Like when you look at the risk, or the school is broken, or what's the board doing, or HR and fraud, like in the charter school world, it's all just sort of this big, murky, soupy thing going on. So I like to try to help that. I want to say right at the outset, I never know what to expect when I walk into a school. I get a little bit of a briefing. I do the board survey, which is kind of a very powerful diagnostic tool because it tells me what you think and what you understand, but I never quite know what I'm walking into. And this week has been wonderful. I got to tell you, it is not often when I'm the guy that walks through the doors. I tell people either people love to see me coming or they hate to see me coming. And this school was very much in the love to see me coming, and your principal very open to like everything that I sort of laid out and suggested and all that. I noticed the good performance rating right there on the banner. For anytime a Title I school can do that, it's like, okay, this is a solid deal here. And then I had the privilege of watching Sherry interact with her staff all week. At one point, we met with your chair in later midweek or something in the office. Just saw a lot of interactions, and I'm like, okay, this is a solid school. Like there's nothing broken to fix here. And that always kind of like, at the point when I realize that, it's like, okay, I can kind of exhale, because sometimes I'm kind of the bearer of bad news, because it falls to me to go to the board and say, yeah, this thing is totally broken. Your baby is ugly. But y'all's is not. So I can go back to North Central Tennessee and breathe a sigh of relief. So what I want to talk about here first, we have a few hours together, and I want to go over some basic constructs. If you're an educator, you recognize the word construct. If you're not an educator, that's a cliche that we use for ideas. We have to have our own lingo. So it's not an idea, it's a construct. But I want to talk about a few constructs, a few sort of, right? I mean, the educator's like, yeah, we just got to make up our own little language. So I want to talk where I have been able to, I think, have the greatest impact with schools comes down to really just one very fundamental idea. I started articulating the idea pretty early in my career, all the way back at the university. And then in the 21 years since I first started just trying to put it out there, it's had time to Here's another educator word we like. We love the word iteration, don't we? Yeah. Yeah, it began to iterate. If you're not an educator, an iteration is just another version of something, a better version of something. We love our iterations and our constructs. We love to iterate our constructs. Now that I think about it, right? Educators, can I get an amen? Yeah, we iterate our constructs, yeah. So this idea that I'll share with you in a minute that I began to first articulate 21 years ago, it has since iterated in my own thinking as I've traveled around the country, working with boards and leaders in just about every state. I haven't actually sat down on the map and figured out if I've been to every state where there's charters, but I've been to most of them, including Alaska and Hawaii. I know Hawaii is tough, but hey, I'm willing to bear my burden. I'll do it for the sake of the children. I'm willing to go to Hawaii and be paid to talk. It's a good gig if you can get it. But this idea began to iterate, and the idea was this. It's a simple idea, but the iteration definitely took time and experience in helping schools. The idea was this, and it wasn't even original to me, by the way. It was original to another gentleman who's now passed away. Some of you may be familiar with the name Dr. John Carver. He was, until he passed away, considered sort of the world's foremost expert on board governance. He articulated this idea that governance, what the board does, is not an extension of management, which is how we tend to think of it. We think of, like in this school, like Sherry, and then the board is managing the school at like above Sherry at the next level. And indeed, the board is at the top of the org chart, so that's not in dispute. But John said, and I first read him in '99, and later was able to be trained by him. But John articulated this idea that governance is something that's separate, distinct, set apart, definitely above management. We know where the board is on the org chart. And that really, as a guy who had worked for boards running Christian schools for a dozen years, that really resonated with me. Like, right, yeah, the board's role is not the same as mine, but at a higher level as the chief executive. The board's role is oversight of what I do, but it is not an extension of what I do. And everywhere as I started to go out and work with schools, I would sort of like run into the same problems again and again and again, where there was some sort of conflict between the board or parts of the board and management. So I began to sort of try to say, okay, well, how could I explain this to ways that people would go, oh, that makes sense. And so I started building a model. So a couple of years in, the distinction between governance and management initially was just like one distinction. And then it kind of morphed into two pretty quickly. I was like, well, it's this and this, and where I could compare and contrast. And then maybe 5 or 6 years in, it morphed into 4 distinctions. So I had 4 ways to show the distinctions between governance and management. And I was trying to make an acronym. I'm an educator at heart, right? So I was trying to make an acronym out of it, but the letters that I had to work with were HOIE, and I wasn't about to call it the HOIE model, because that's one letter off of HOIE, right? And I didn't want to put a model out there. It was like, yeah, here's the HOIE model. Like, what board's gonna be like, that's what we want to do? Although I will say in North Central Tennessee, there's a dentist in town whose last name was Hooey, and he spells it HOOIE. That's his last name. I'm like, dude, good for you, man. Way to hang in there with that name. Yeah, come to Hooey Dental Practice. Well, we don't just care about your teeth. That's a bunch of hooey to us. So in 2018, I was reading a business article on something, and suddenly it was just a sort of an aha moment. I was like, oh, that's a dimension that I need to add that to the model. That gave me a 5th letter. And then I was able to form a proper acronym, because that gave me something I could use the letter P, and I just reconfigured it and it became the I HOPE model. And it stayed the I HOPE model from January 2018. So where are we at, 2026? What is that, 8 years ago, I guess. It stayed the I HOPE model for the last 8 years. Everything I wrote, stuff like that. Last summer, I knew that it was time to add one more dimension, but I think this is it. Like, no more. This is it. I added one more dimension, but it meant adding another word, which meant expanding the acronym. And I didn't want to make it like I hopes or I hoped, so I just rearranged a few words, and it became the CHAMPS model, which I'm telling you, that's got legs right there. The board CHAMPS model, that will work. And so I published a Kindle book, and we actually made a PDF copy of that. I'm not going to read it to you, so if you're worried about that, you can breathe a sigh of relief, but it says, "Behold the Lane Lines." And if you would like the Kindle version, just send me your email, and I will send you a link for you to get it for free if you're an iPad user and you want it. I'm a Kindle guy. So if you would like it, it's $3, but I can, as the author, I can get it to you for free. So just send me an email and just say Kindle version of Champs. So that's the last iteration, but I'm gonna explain the Champs model to you, but I'm not gonna read that. I'm not even gonna read anything out of that publication to you. But the reason I wrote it was that is the first time in 20 years that I've reduced essentially all of my teaching, everything I'd been saying about the distinctions between governance management, the first time I had reduced it to writing. So, and I'm 66 and I'm thinking about my legacy, and I'm like, I got to get this stuff in writing, right? Like, it's great that I can go share it with people, but it was never written down. So now it's written down. So that's kind of my legacy to the charter school world. And you can read it on your own. It's about 8,000 words. It's not a super long read. I don't know how long, an hour maybe or something. And I have an audio version, but I don't like the way I sound on audio versions. So I don't know if I'm going to do anything with that. But I am going to explain the Champs model to you. And so if you're a note taker, you can take notes. But the good news is virtually everything I say and probably 90% more about that model is in that publication. You can read it on your own. But before we get there, that's what we're going to kind of wrap our heads around here. Before we get there, let's just do a couple of quick little Y4s. And so you can skip the all about me, I love me page. Everybody's got to have one. And I want to draw your attention to this page right here. And obviously I put it in red and put it in bold and put a star by it. So 3 ways of saying, hey, this is the most important thing on this page. Take a minute to swish that around in your brain. Between the roughly 2 decades, between 99 and 2017, 3,700 charter schools, that's roughly out of about 8,000-ish, which is 41% in that closed. That there's been an update to this research, it's now 50%. 50% of all charter schools in roughly the last 2.5 decades that have got a charter, actually got as far as getting a contract, what you approved this morning, 50% of them are out of business by their 15th year. That is a sobering reality. It's about the same failure rate, just takes a little bit longer, but it's about the same failure rate of small businesses. They say half of all small businesses are out of business like within 3 years. So it's the same percentage, just lasts a little bit longer. This is and of course, if you do this for a living like I do, it's like, everybody's like, well, why? Like, why? That's troubling, right? It means every 1 in 2 schools that I visit that's about the age of Coastal won't be there in a year or two. And so as a guy who's out to help schools be there, the question becomes, why is this? And here's the sort of discouraging part of the answer. There's no research that tells us why. There's no research that tells us why. The closest thing we have is research that categorizes, or I would almost go so far as to say attempts to categorize reasons. They'll say like financial reasons. And as you would not be surprised, most schools close because of quote unquote financial reasons. But if you stop and think about it, and I'm actually, I'm not going to say the names of any other schools, but I'm actually thinking of a school I was recently working with. They're probably going to go, a South Carolina charter school, they're probably going to go out of business at the end of this year, before their charter runs out. They're having financial problems. They're bleeding money, right? They're not making a profit. I put that in air quotes. A net income is what we call it. They're not making a profit right now. They don't have much money on hand to start with. You guys, by the way, are in probably, of all the schools I've visited in the last 5 years, you guys are easily in the top 10% in terms of your current financial position. So pat yourselves on the back. Some good money management going on here. I love to see that. But if you think about it, the financial reason it could be a cause, but it could also just be a symptom of something else. So the school I'm thinking about, another South Carolina charter school, I spent a day with them, sort of like this, and there's a lot of conflict between pieces of the board, if you will, segments of the board, and the school leader. The school leader quit, and then they talk the person into coming back, and then they quit again. And because some of the segments of the board are basically going out in the community where the school is, and they're like, don't send your kids to that school, right? So the kids are disenrolling, and they're bleeding students, which means they're bleeding money because that is your revenue base. So I would look at that as a researcher and as a legitimate subject matter expert, meaning attorneys hire me when they're defending board members against lawsuits. So a legitimate subject matter expert, I would tell you, they're not closing because of financial reasons. They're closing because of essentially interpersonal conflict between segments of the board and the school leader, and then segments within the community and all that. Just, it just kind of turns into this. It's like a church fight. I don't know if you've ever been in the middle of a church fight. I love it. Boom. So I would tell you that school will close. That's my prediction. It will close. It'll probably close at the end of this year. And if it's ever like tallied in the research, it'll go down as the cause being financial. But I can tell you, as having been there, the financial was a symptom. The cause was people couldn't get along and they couldn't find a way to resolve their differences. So this 3,700, this 50% number, we don't have any research that really, and that's a really tough thing. Like, how would you research that? Because, if you've done research, you got to standardize things and you got to have a way to measure this. And you're really talking about a lot of sort of psychodynamic kinds of things, people interactions, and it gets really tricky to categorize. However, I have a theory. I'll never be able to prove it. I would be willing to do the research. So if you know anybody who's worth millions of dollars and wants to pay me a ridiculous amount of money to research it, I'm willing. Just give them my name. My website is my name, brianlcarpenter.com. I have a theory, and my theory is essentially evolved out of being in the field for 21 years and working with schools and seeing what's going on and going, I see this. Now, the downside of that in research terms is that can also be confirmation bias, right? I think it's this, so naturally I see that, right? But I'll share with you my theory about this number. This is what I'm trying to stop. This is what I'm trying to stop right here, because if we keep doing this in the movement, we aren't going to have charter schools in 20 years. Public policy, it'll go away. It didn't exist before 91. Minnesota in 91, it didn't exist. It's a state statute. It's not even a federal thing. It's a state statute. Chartering doesn't even look the same in South Carolina like it looks in Indiana or Ohio or Texas or California or Alaska. It's different everywhere you go. But this will go away if we keep posting, because guess what our enemies do? We have political enemies. You realize that, right? We are the redheaded stepchildren of public education, right? We have political enemies. In fact, this piece of data was published by probably the most vocal and most well-funded political enemy of charter schools. And they love these data points. By the way, look at the research. It's legit, because anytime I can, that's what a PhD in education is, teach you to dissect research. Anytime I can dissect the enemy's research, sharpen the sword, I'm ready to do battle. I looked at their research, their methodology, their conclusions. It was all solid. But this was produced by the enemies, right? So what are they saying with this? They're like, yeah, see, those charter school people, they're too good for the district. We don't need them. It's just all about the money. They don't care about standards. They don't care about kids. Of course, all their kids, by the way, these are mostly New Yorkers. All their kids go to like the $50,000 a year private school, like school choice. That's good for their kids, but not yours. So what is the theory here? Well, I'm going to walk you into it. This is not quite research. Let's make this a tidge bigger here. You have a tidge? We have a tidge in Tennessee. You have a tidge in South Carolina? A midge? A midge? Okay. In Michigan, it's a squidge.
Okay. Same word family.
Let's make it a midge bigger. All right. So this is, now again, this is not research, observation. What's that saying? The plural of anecdote is not data. Is that the saying? Mm-hmm. So this is not data, this is observation, but it is field work. And if it means anything to you, from the vantage point of what I do, I am the most field worked charter school guy in the country. There's not another consultant out there that has the depth and breadth of field work that I have, 21 years. In fact, there's not even many of them out there even that's been at it 21 years. So this is what I see. Now, again, this is observation, but the header, this is what my old research in 08, I did do my research for my dissertation, but observations about board ineffectiveness. So see, I'm not asking for, this is not confession time. I'm not a priest, so I'm not asking for any confessions, but just see if any of this like rings, resonates with you. This is, that survey you guys took? This is what board members tell me on the survey. 21 years, this is what people have been telling me for 21 years. They didn't receive any meaningful orientation when they joined the board. They received little, if any, ongoing training about how to fulfill their responsibilities. Just think about those first two things. Think about this proposition. You are a director or an officer on a corporate board. You are an official corporation, the way the law is you, as a charter school, nonprofit corporation. You're responsible this year for the oversight of about $3.1 or $3.3 million. Next year, it's going to be closer to $4.1 million. And the education, the oversight of the education of other people's children. And our basic premise, the way the statute is structured in South Carolina, our basic premise is, 3 hours of training when you join the board, and we're good. Yeah, we're good. By the way, I've attended that 3 hours of training that the Department of Ed offers, and I'm glad we have some time together. Let me just leave it at that. Now, think about this. Think about Walmart. You walk through the door and they got a greeter. I don't know this for a fact, but I have heard that a Walmart greeter has to go through like 20 or 30 hours of whatever orientation and training they do before they set them out at the front door. Wait, what? 20 or 30 hours before they can even stand there at the front door and say hello, right? And here we are, we're responsible for $3 million. The last school I ran, $10 million a year. The school before that, $12 million a year. Responsible for the oversight of tens of millions of dollars, if you add up year over year, and other people's children, not just our own, if you have kids here, right? Other people's children as well. And our basic assumption at the legislative level is, you're good. This is a 3-hour thing that you have to do, and we're going to talk about open meetings, and you're good. You're good. What? So if you're saying, Brian, does the failure rate of school, which is how it is in most states, Georgia is a very good exception to this, by the way. They require, I think it's 12 hours per year, 3 of which have to be on financial oversight because they've had some massive frauds in that state. A charter school founder went to jail for 10 years because of a fraud that the board should have caught. And so they have this. Georgia's is kind of the exception. Texas is approximating it, but not really in there. And then New Mexico, they want to, but they can't seem to figure out how to. But that's it. In South Carolina, 3, and this, in some states, it's 0. It's not even the 3. It's just a big fat 0. Like, okay, we assume that you're good to go. I can tell you right now, and this is not to make you feel bad. I'm trying to teach you something. I could ask you guys 3 simple questions about the income statement and the balance sheet, and there's 8 of you sitting here. 6 of you won't be able to answer simple questions about what that information means. And yet, we've made you responsible for the preservation, the safeguarding of $3 million of taxpayer money. And this doesn't seem, and we got, meanwhile, we have the legislature up there, over there. Where's Columbia from here? Over there? Do you say over there or up there? Or down there? Up there? We got the legislators, and their best idea, well, let's solve the charter school problem. You got to live stream your board meetings. Hey, way to solve the problem, guys. Yeah, woohoo! How about this? How about fraud risk management training? That's a term in the real world. Fraud risk management, that's a term. How about that? As in, what can we do as a board to make sure that fraud isn't happening in our school? That'd be good training. They do it in Georgia, by the way. In fact, the first year that you do it as a board member in Georgia, you have to get it through the Department of Ed. You have to drive to Atlanta. Is that the capital of Georgia?
Yeah.
You have to drive to Atlanta, to the Department of Ed, your first year that you get that 3 hours. And then you can get it from somebody else. But guess what? The somebody else's have to even be approved by the Department of Ed. They have to be approved. Yeah, I'm on the approved list. But in other words, if you want to train somebody to board to understand that, you first have to convince the Department of Ed, I've got the creds to back this up. South Carolina, yeah, we're live streaming meetings. Okay, we appreciate that. Haven't read their own school. Now again, this is what board members tell me, and I think I stopped asking this. I used to ask, have you read your bylaws? I think I just stopped asking it because most people would be like, yeah, no, I haven't read it. Did you know, as far as the law is concerned, whatever your bylaws say, did you know that part of your fiduciary duty as a board member is you have to obey? It's called the duty of obedience under the law. You have to obey, that's the word, not conform or comply or mostly follow. You have to obey what your bylaws say. If your bylaws say we'll have an annual meeting on the second Tuesday of July at 3:18 p.m., you're technically obligated to obey that. Now, here's the good news. It doesn't really matter until it does. And guess when it matters? I'll tell you exactly when it matters, because I know I get involved in stuff like this. It matters when there's a lawsuit. Because the other side, by the way, when I mention attorneys, I want to put you at ease. I only work for attorneys who defend board members. I've never and would never take a case against the board. There were one or two when I thought about it. It was tempting just to make a point, but I've never and would never take a case, just defending you, right? The other side is going to hire an expert too. And they're going to do the same thing I do as the expert for the defense. My initial conversation with the attorney is, okay, send me the bylaws. Why do I look at the bylaws? I'm looking for on the attorney's behalf, did they obey their bylaws? I see boards violating their bylaws all the time. It says you'll have elections. They don't have elections. It says you'll do this. They don't do this. And it's like, okay, when the litigation hits, everybody gets real interested in what the bylaws say at that point. And yet you have the duty to obey them. And again, I don't ask this question on the survey, so I don't actually know what the percentage is, but I feel pretty comfortable saying 3/4 of you haven't read your bylaws or even been given a copy of them, maybe. I don't know. Maybe they're on the website. Maybe they're easy. I don't know. But you should read them.
They're in
They're in the notebook.
Yeah, we all-
All right. Yeah. By the way, in my follow-up set of recommendations, I have reviewed your bylaws and already talked with Mary Allison, and there's some changes to your bylaws that I could suggest for you that would strengthen them for you. Most board members are unaware of the potential personal liability serving on board. Board members tell me this, like, well, I can't be sued because I'm a volunteer. It's a nonprofit. I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. Do I send a refund to the attorneys that have paid me? They're defending charter school board members' lawsuits. Does that create an obligation? Do I send them a refund for the advice that they paid me to give them? You can be sued. Now, I don't want you to freak out and go, oh my God, because you have general liability insurance. That's what if you were to get sued, that insurance would kick in. The insurance company will send a gunslinger, a high-powered attorney that works in a glass building 18 stories up, and they will defend you in the lawsuit. So don't flip out. But you can be personally liable. The most important thing that you need to know about this personal liability is you always want to be able to say that's what the board did. You don't ever want the attorney for the plaintiff to get you to admit under the deposition that, well, you did that individually. Oh yeah, I sent Sherry that email telling her to, change out the bulletin boards or do this, right? You don't want to be that person, because guess what? That's acting outside the scope of your authority. And we're going to talk about the scope of your authority. And then the insurance company, imagine just a thought experiment with me. Pretend that we lived in a world where insurance companies look for reasons to deny claims. I know, like, just do a thought experiment with me, right? So if we lived in a world like that, somebody over there is going to look at the things and they're going to say, yep, we're not covering this because you acted outside the scope of your authority. Guess who's paying your legal bills at that point? You. Food for thought. They don't know whether key financial controls are in place and are being followed. Okay, now, to be fair, I'm a fraud investigator, so the statement that is gonna follow this has that as its context. There is no way I would serve on a board, knowing what I know about liability and all of that, there's no way Brian Carpenter is serving on a board. I need to see some financial controls before I say, yes, I'll do this. You're not coming after my ass, sets. Have never seen the board's policy manual. If there is one, they don't know where it is. And in the early days, 20 years ago, law schools didn't have policy manuals. I'm running into that less and less. I think as the movement matures, it's starting to be more of a taken for granted that schools have a policy manual. When they have a management company, they almost never know how much money they're paying it, and it's usually an absurd amount of money. Number 7, it's usually an absurd amount of money. FYI, by the way, I know this is being recorded. It's going to be on YouTube. I don't get a lot of Christmas cards from management companies, and I'm quite proud of that. They do their darndest to keep me from being in front of their boards because of the stuff that I talk about, accountability of management. They love the part when they say the board should govern and manage. They love that part. But as soon as I start talking about accountability for management, it's like, don't put that dude in front of the board. In fact, in number 8, they usually tell me they think they work for the management company. Like they think they're there to approve the management company's shtick. I'm like, no, actually, it's the other way around. They don't see trend data when they're reviewing the academic performance. That's really tricky. Showing you a snapshot of data for a year, that tells me nothing. I need to see the last 2 to 3 years to make any sense out of the current data. They incorrectly think their schools are deregulated. I don't hear that as much as I used to. 15 years ago, I heard that a lot. Yeah, we're deregulated. And then they get into it, and it's like, holy cow. If you're deregulated, I haven't seen it. I don't know where the deregulation is. I'm still waiting for somebody to show me. You are highly, highly regulated. It's crazy. And when I'm wearing my ED hat, I think I spend more time doing all the things you have to do for verifying compliance with regulation than any other thing that I do. Way more than instructional leadership, which is very disheartening when you're a school leader. Very disheartening, because we got into this thing because we care about kids. And you get into the job and you realize you don't have the time to give to the kids. You barely have the time to give to your staff. They serve on boards, and you guys haven't done this, but I heard this was sort of a thing back toward the beginning of the school. I'm glad you haven't been doing this, but number 11 is still a thing. 30 years into the movement, it's still a thing. Boards churning through a top management official, whatever you call that person, principal, executive director, school leader, whatever, every 12 to 36 months. And then the board sits back and they have these meetings and they say, we don't understand why there's so much chaos in the school. I'm like, you don't? York Prep, and they sat with that board for the first time in 2014, and they was like, could you do an assessment and tell us why there's so much chaos in school? I'm like, yeah. Actually, I don't even have to do the assessment. They'd had 5 leaders in 5 years in December of 2014. I'm like, how much more data do you need? They don't know who their school's authorizer is or when their charter expires. They mistakenly believe that this is a big one, number 13, the board members mistakenly believe that the primary responsibility for fraud prevention and detection falls to the auditor. I think I need to edit that because the word primary is in there twice. It doesn't fall to your auditor. Anybody want to take a wild shot in the dark? You probably get this right. Wild shot in the dark. Who is primarily responsible for fraud prevention and detection at Coastal High School? Yeah. Say it loud.
The board.
Say it loud.
The board.
You're responsible. I'll throw this in there for free. We included a handout. We're not going to spend any time on it today, but there's a handout called Follow the Money, where I break down board financial oversight. What most boards don't do, and this is the most valuable thing that you can do, they never look at the source documents. Who's my treasurer here? Who's my treasurer?
He's not able to be here today.
Okay. They never look at source documents. They'll look at the financial reports, balance sheet, income statement. Yeah. Guess what? You don't have to be a fraud investigator to know how to hide fraud in a set of financial statements. Hide it all day long. Hide it for 10 years. start looking at the bank statements, and it's awfully hard to hide it because, they're printed at the bank. Example, that founder in Atlanta that I was telling you all about stole. The school, I think, made it to about its third year, but I think they said that they estimated he stole about $1.2 million over not quite 3 years. If you were to sit in on their board meetings, especially toward the end, they were spending most of their time talking about fundraising. The board that I could tell from everything I could get a hold of, which is not everything there is, but what I could tell, the board never once looked at the source documents, looked at the bank statements. After it made it into the newspaper, because the school ran out of money, so people started looking. The dude quit and fled out of state. They started looking at the bank statements, and among the things that he was going to strip clubs using the school's credit card, he had a charge to, I think it was Carnival Cruise Line. Now, let me see here. Let's just do a little quick field test. How do you say your name?
Clay.
Clay, are you a certified fraud investigator?
No.
If I had a CHS bank statement right here, I don't, but if I handed it to you and said, hey, Clay, look this over, and you look at it and you see Carnival Cruise Lines, do you feel like you would ask a question like, what's this charge for? And yet, she's not a certified fraud investigator. It's that easy. Look at the bank statements. Most charter school boards don't do it. They never look. Never even bother looking. And it's right there. Now, one little footnote on that. Sometimes you get a sophisticated person. This happens in about 35 to, research says this happens in about 35%, 40% of the time. Sometimes if you're dealing with a very sophisticated person who's sending you the bank statements, like from within the organization, they'll take a PDF editor and they'll change the name of it. And so if you're ever in a situation as a board where you're just not sure you can trust, like where the bank statements, just get a set of login credentials from the school or go to the school and say, print me off January's bank statement and take it yourself. Don't like rely on the, so it does happen. Like, or you get a sophisticated fraudster and they'll take that PDF editor and they'll change it and it won't say Carnival Cruise Line. It'll say, ABC Consulting or something like that. They're unaware, number 14, this is only gotten into the workbook in the last couple of years. They're unaware that the board should set expectations for enterprise risk management. That's a real term in the real world. It's not a Brianism. And number 15, which I put a red star by because I'm driving toward a point. So you're doing a good job sticking with me. They don't understand the difference between governance and management. That is, they don't know where the lane lines are. So they're just making it up as they go. And I always say, I did a TEDx talk last year. I always say, you can't blame them for not knowing where the lane lines are because you got consultants running around and this is their advice. The board should stay in its lane. The board should stay in its lane. The board should stay in its lane. The board should... Okay, where's the lane lines? Well, the board should avoid micromanaging. Okay, well, what is micromanaging? Well, the board should focus on the big picture. Okay, what's the big picture? In fact, on big picture, I say this: if you get sued as a board, it won't be over something that went wrong with the big picture. It'll be something that went wrong in daily operations. So you get all these consultants running around saying, the board should stay in its lane. And nobody, except for John Carver, nobody ever took the time to say, well, I think the lane lines could be thought of like this. Like, here's the lane lines. Here's how you can tell. So that's how I've what I've been doing for 21 years is defining those lane lines. So again, this is not research, and you couldn't even call it a representative sample, even though these things have come out of hundreds and hundreds of surveys, thousands of board members. You couldn't even call it a representative sample for research purposes because the fact that boards hire me to begin with means they self-selected me for some reason, meaning they thought there was some kind of problem that needed to happen. So maybe they answer the questions differently than boards that don't. So I don't know. It's not research. It's just observations. But there's nobody in the country that can sit in front of you like I am and saying, I've talked to more boards than anybody. So this is what I think, having done that. What is happening here, Mousy? Oh, I see. We got a little bit of a delay there. Okay. All right, we did that. And it's doing the delay thing, so I'm gonna let it wait here. There we go. So the lane lines, this is where the CHAMPS model comes in, the 6 key differences between governance and management. This is a photo I bought on iStock, and then very crudely, I took my photo editor and it actually had lane lines painted on it in the photo. And I was like, well, what if it had like no lane lines? But it looks like a hack job, doesn't it? This, like, you can tell that blacktop isn't like legit looking.
Looks like, I was
What's it look like?
544.
One of the high school parking lots in renovation to get out there.
So governance consultants love to say the board should stay in its lane. This would be great advice if anyone actually explain where the lane lines are. I'm going to do that. Before I do that, though, I want to give you some definitions because words mean things. And unless we have an agreed upon set of definitions, I may be saying one thing and you may be hearing something else. So let me give you some definition. And I'm going to give you 3 definitions. I'm going to give you, in block A, I'm going to give you the definition for charter school performance. In block B, in one sentence, the top management official's job, that's Sherry. And in block C, the purpose of the board, that's you all. So let's start up here with performance. This is a universal definition, and it took me a while, but again, John Carver kind of influenced my thinking on this. So I define charter school performance as accomplishing the student outcomes. And I'm sorry, I don't have the kind of screen. Can I write on that? Can
I think you can.
Yeah, the pens are.
It's stuck to the bottom.
Oops. Like just with my finger or?
No, the pen.
Use the pen.
See the pens on
Stuck on
the.
the bottom.
Oh, okay.
Hit the pin thing on the side.
Right.
See the little pin? Like, where's Nick when you?
There we go.
Down there.
This is groovy. Okay, so what we said in the early 70s in high school. Accomplishing student outcomes, which the school was chartered. Notice my use of the word charter as a verb there. We almost always use it as a noun or an adjective. What kind of school? Adjective, charter school. But chartered is actually a legitimate verb form of the word. So you were chartered to produce that thing you just approved. You've been now chartered to produce student outcomes. But the other part of the definition, you have to do so within all required parameters, right? Private schools wasn't like this, right? Take misbehaving children as, sort of an example. We used to call them brats. I don't think we do that anymore. But, misbehaving children, whatever. In private school,
Say rascals.
rascals. In private school, if you brought a rascal through the front door and you wanted to enroll him, and I saw his records and he's hitting other kids in the head with chairs and all that, I'd be like, yeah, no, you're not a good fit here. No, you ain't coming. Can't do that. Can't do that in charter school because you're public school. It's come on, no matter what. There's a few little technical exceptions, but so granular they're not worth talking about right now. What's a student outcome? So this is, again, a universal definition of performance. You could do this with any charter school. It's something the students know, understand, and can do or appreciate as a result of the school's programs. And it's not the programs themselves. It's what happens in the life of the student because you're doing the programs, right? If you're a language immersion school, the outcome is not the language immersion exposure. It's the child's ability to, on some level, speak the language that we're immersing them in. Now, the parameters, this is the sad part of the thing. And I don't know, it'd be nice if someone would tell us this before we said yes, we'll all be on the board. Sherry will spend more time, and you will spend more time as her board ensuring compliance with the parameters than you will look at the outcomes. Usually we look at the outcomes 2, maybe 3 times a year, depending on what kind of test data we have available. Because we need some sort of standardized measure, some way of reliably saying, okay, right? So what do you spend the other 9, 10 meetings doing? Ensuring compliance with the parameters. And the actual job, her job, I don't know when you were a principal with Tanya in the district if it was like that, but you spend more in the charter school world. You spend more time ensuring compliance with the singing parameters than anything else. You're in the central office. Yeah, you're in the central office. Yeah, it's a good gig if you can get it. I am really trying hard not to trip over this HDMI cable, but stay tuned because there's a good chance. Now you say, well, Brian, that's awesome. Could you just like give us a link to the parameters? Well, I wish I could, but even if such a thing existed, by the time you finish reading it 18 years from now, it would have changed a gajillion times over. But I can give you the categories where the parameters are found. The categories where they're found. First category is constitutional parameters. So, no discriminating. That's a constitutional thing. Non-religious, right? You can't have Bible studies and at least part of the curriculum. Stuff like that. And believe it or not, I still see charter schools getting sued over violating or allegedly violating people's constitutional rights. There was a school in North Carolina about, how long has this been? 12 years ago, I think, something like that. It was a new school. They didn't have a facility yet. So they were meeting in a church for enrollment information. And the community was very excited for this school to come. And the soon-to-be school leader was up there at the microphone. Now they're in a church building. They're having the meeting in a church. So, how our environment like signals us to behave in a certain way. They're in church. And apparently the school leader was just really into this. It was a client of mine, and I wasn't at the meeting, but he kept saying, "Can I get an amen?" And the audience was giving it to him. They were giving him the amen, but one person who wanted to throw a rock at the school hired a lawyer using their own money, and filed a constitutional complaint against them. And they then had to pay an attorney to write a big apology. Sorry, we didn't mean to offend anybody. We were just, we were caught up in the moment. And, those constitutional parameters are real. It's not hypothetical is my point. Second category of parameters includes federal and state law or statute or statutory. Statutory. This is the part where I laugh. People are like, well, we're a charter school, we're deregulated. I'm like, really? Which laws exactly are you exempt from? Because I can't find them.
You're overregulated.
Yeah, we're overregulated. It is crazy. And it's federal and state, right? It's not just that there's federal laws on education. You got to do this plus this if you want this a little pot of money. Example, the money set aside for kids from poverty, we call it Title I. There's a whole set of, well, you can't do this, you can't buy this, if you do this, if you're kids, you gotta do this, and put an asset tags, right? Okay, it's a good idea. It's good business practice to stick an asset tag and know what you're in for. If you buy with federal funds, you gotta have a different asset tag. And it's gotta be its own.
Nick, don't be Nick.
That's what I've been doing.
Yeah. Which both at the management level and the board levels enough to make you legitimately go, come.
So what we're saying is they need to help me asset tag?
Yes, on a Saturday.
Next Saturday.
And,
Meet me on the 6th Saturday of every month, right?
and for those of you who are feeling like, the statutes are insufficient, hang in there. We also got regulatory, baby. Oh yeah, we got the regulations. We got them regulations. We got them. Ooh, yeah. If you're an educator, CFR 34. Titillating, baby. Special ed. Education.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah. Google CFR 34 just for some real titillating reading. It's just like, this is good stuff. Regulations. Trying to think of something that I maybe recently run into that was a regulatory. Well, that's statutory. You got to live stream the meetings. Okay, that's not regulatory. That's statutory. Regulation is somebody with legitimate statutory authority saying you have to do it this way. So they issue a regulation. So your authorizer is sort of the first stop on the regulation train. You got to do it this way, right? Contractual. You got contractual parameters. This includes every contract that the school enters into, but there is one contract that's kind of the big boy on the block. What contract is that?
Is it with the authorizer?
Say it loud.
With the authorizer.
Yes.
Yay
Yeah,
for our authorizer.
the charter contract, that, you just approved a contract. And what does every contract have? It has terms, right? We'll do this and you do that. In exchange, we'll give you money, and then you gotta do this, right? So contractual, that's the big boy. A lot, when the authorizers get ready to revoke a school, you know, I've been watching this, it even helped a few times. They don't go for the gray areas. Usually there's just, you know, you could fill a 5 composition notebooks with the gray areas. They go for the black and white. Somebody gets out the bylaws and says, so did you have an annual meeting on the second Tuesday of July? You never did that, you had it on Thursday. Violating duty would be, maybe not quite that picky, but didn't have board elections when you said you were supposed to have board elections? The school that's gonna close, I think, this year, didn't have the board elections when they were supposed to, right there in the bylaws.
I think people that picky.
Yeah. This is my favorite one. Given the information I told you about myself, Jill, what's the word you think in number 5 here?
Fiduciary duty.
Close.
Responsibilities.
Yeah, close. No, close. Financial parameters. Financial parameters. Here's the big one. You cannot spend more money than you take in. You are not Congress. You are not Congress. Financial parameters, though, you can't believe how granular financial parameters can get. For example, you get government money, so you have to comply with some, but not all, some what we call requirements. They're called GASB requirements, governmental, and they're written by a federally recognized entity called the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. You've heard of generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP. Those are produced by the Financial Accounting Standards Board. GASB is its governmental version of this. So like 2 years ago, the good people at GASB, apparently not much to do. I'm thinking like, too much time around. Let's come up with a new reg. So two years ago, I think GASB 96 comes along. What's GASB 96? Well, it tells you there are 95 standards prior to 96. GASB 96 comes along and says if you receive governmental funds, you must list the platforms that you purchase from, like Paychex or Power School or these other platforms. You have to list them as an asset on your balance sheet, because you in the GASB mind, it's like, okay, it's an asset. It's I'm like, no, it's something I'm purchasing. It's not an asset. I can't convert it to cash. So in my mind, it's not an asset. Any accountants in the room?
Okay, subscriptions.
Man, I love to talk accounting with people. Yeah, it's not an asset. It's a liability. It's an expense. But nope, the GASB people, your assets. I was running a school authorized by Erskine when that GASB hit, and we had to have a special administrators meeting to talk about GASB compliance with GASB 96. So we're all sitting around. Time I'd rather be looking at what the kids are doing. No, I got to sit in front of my screen and learn what it's going to take to comply with GASB 96. Got to do it. There are operational parameters, and these tend to be just the reality of where you're at, right? So, you guys have a road that dumps into a main intersection. It's kind of an operational parameter, because sooner or later you're going to have car accidents out there, and the school may or may not get blamed. At least you have a light. We had a road like that at Vertus with no light because the railroad was too close to have a light. So we'd rather let kids almost get killed.
You think that'd be the reason?
Yeah.
Right. You don't have a gym on your campus, right? That's an operational parameter. We'd love to have a gym, but we don't. So we got to take kids over to the rec center. So we got transportation. So all these things, all these like dominoes, because it's just a normal operational parameter. Like we can't wish a gym into existence. So we have to deal with the parameters that come because of that. And this last area, this is a gray area, but that's what you're being paid the big bucks for as volunteer directors and officers. The gray is to decide issues, sometimes in the gray area, and this consists of ethical / prudential or prudence, meaning it's not a violation of any of the other categories, but it's like, yeah, prudence is like, does that make sense? Is that smart to do? For years, I was teaching this course, and boards would be like, that's interesting. Can you give us an example of that? And I'm like, well, yeah, I don't know. And I try to think of something off the top of my head. And then one day, I was reading, I've created a bunch of Google alerts in my account. So you know how to do a Boolean search like Charter School Plus. So I've got this email account that's called Charter School Alerts Only. So that's the only thing that comes into the account. And it's like Charter School Plus Fraud, Charter School Plus Alleged, Charter School Plus Indicted, Charter School Plus Charged, Charter School Plus Revocation. So all these search terms. So literally in the country every day, I get, I don't know, 20 or 30 emails a day. Some of them is, you know, the Lady Eagles defeated the Buccaneers in a volleyball upset because it's hitting on the word charter school. But I get a lot of, like, if there's fraud and it's made it into the public, I'm reading about it. And so one day I'm reading an article, and this is the article. And I was so like, this is the perfect example of what I mean by prudential and ethical. I wrote I sent an email to the Atlanta Journal not the Atlanta Journal,
I think you could put the pen back up.
Yeah.
I could be wrong.
It can't do two things at once.
Well, yeah, so.
Can I just
What
flick
it
it?
actually does when you do that is it actually screenshots. So when you get out of that, it's going to go away.
Can I just go like this?
It literally screenshot that screen.
Okay, so what do I press to scroll up?
You're going to have to go, you can either save or not save. So it will actually save the file if you want.
Okay, we'll just save.
Then, and get it up there. Then it will,
Then I can scroll up.
yep, then you can scroll up. When it pops back.
That's pretty soon.
Well, that's new.
Yeah.
Go back to your screen. I think that might just be what's on your screen right now.
Oh,
There we go. Cool.
yeah.
I know. There you go.
Okay. Nope, it didn't save it, but that's okay.
Well, it'll save it as an image on that computer so we can.
So I'm reading this article, and I'm going to let you guys read it. I want you to just take a minute and read it to yourself. And so I've titled it "Imprudent." What do you think? Your board of directors, what do you think? So the actual article was an editorial, and it was titled "Executive Pay at Charter School Catches Auditors' Attention." Now in New Mexico, where this happened, the state of New Mexico does all the audits. You don't get to select the auditor; the state auditor does it. So read the article, and then we'll talk about it. Tell me what you think. Do you think it's imprudent?
I have a reading about that.
Jill's already getting upset.
Yeah, I saw this in the news. And this happened again. Yes.
Extra points to Clay for underlining.
It's like a university president salary. That's a come over. To get all that kind of stuff.
So pretend you're a board member on the school. Anybody have a problem with this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
More than one, right?
Mhm.
And yet, to the point of the editorial, nothing against the law, says it can't do it. Wasn't in violation of the charter contract, wasn't in violation of any law, any regulation, no accounting standard, nothing, just imprudent. And I would argue unethical. Now, for the rest of the story, so I sent an email to the, what's this newspaper, the Albuquerque Journal. I sent them an email like, hey, can I pay for permission to reprint this in my training workbooks? And I'm thinking, okay, they're going to say yes, and say it would be like $2,000 or something. They were like within a day, they're like, yes, attached as an invoice for $12. So I'm like, cool. So I have the right to reprint this. I don't violate copyright laws. But look, just, it's absurd. How could you be on a board and let this happen? How could you do this? I can tell you exactly how they likely did it. I met the couple, by the way, and I'll tell you that in a minute. How they likely did it, he just front loaded the board. They just loaded them, cherry picked their buddies to be on the board, and so they didn't care. They probably didn't even know what he was making until that article he just wrote himself a check, and they were probably good with it. This article, I read that this is, I didn't stumble onto this until 2018. I just happened to remember that because of what I was doing at the time. And about 3 months after I read this and got permission to reprint those, I was actually invited by the New Mexico Department of Ed to do some workshops at their state conference. And I was talking about this stuff, and I had this article up there. This couple was sitting right on the front row.
That's hilarious. That's great.
They were like, "That's us."
Oh.
They actually admitted it right there in front of the conference, and then they got up and left. You know, I was like,
Well, if you have business people on your board, which is often what happens, these salaries probably don't even cause a blink of an eye, and they need to do their homework and look at what principals make.
yeah, and what he was paying his teachers relative to what he
Yeah,
was
that
making.
was
Well, I think the other two
Yeah.
things here I look at are the car allowance and an additional special ed consulting contract with the same school.
To his family,
Yeah.
yeah, to his daughter. Yeah, just, it's absurd. And yeah, to the point of the
Salaries
editorial,
aside, those
perfectly
two things
legal.
are ridiculous.
perfectly legal. So going back to our, I'm not gonna fill all those back in, but some things are just, issues of ethics and proofs that you have to decide as a board. Okay, let's go to block B.
You
Purpose-
can probably pull back up the image, and it'll be filled in. It's a picture.
Oh,
And it's saved as GIF.
you know how I do that?
No, it's too small there.
Okay, you guys
I don't know what the.
got everything though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so block B, purpose of the charter schools, I'm gonna just make a little edit here.
You need to push
You have
the
to tap
10
the
on the
pen
side.
again.
Oh, yeah, thank you. I always tell my staff for a good time, watch a baby boomer with technology. I'm just gonna do a little edit here on the fly for you and line this out and just so you're clear. Is it I or IE? Okay, Sherry's purpose as the school's top management official. In one sentence with 5 words, you just have to supply the missing word. I can tell you I use this with every school leader. This is their job at the charter school. This is their job description in one sentence.
Perform.
That's it. This,
My dog.
now, if you
Yeah, been
did
down.
not notice that the word performed is underlined in the quote, I feel like we should question your intellectual prowess to be on the governing board. Quote by Peter Drucker, he said it, it's to make the organization perform. He used a lot more words than I use, but it's to make the school perform. You say, well, Brian, that's not very helpful. What do you mean by performance? What do I mean by performance?
The top sentence.
Yeah,
Outcomes.
which is what?
Your measured outcomes.
Outcomes within parameters. What is school performance? She is producing outcomes within parameters.
And
Now, I
it's
realize that's
great.
at like a really roll-up level, I get you. Her actual job description is about 3 to 4 pages, and I've given her a copy of that, and one of my recommendations you'll get from me in about 3 weeks is the full report. And I'm gonna recommend that you adopt the job description that I've created for school leaders, but if you roll that 4-page job description up into a single sentence, it's this: outcomes within, produce the outcomes and stay within the parameters. Very simple conceptually. At a practical level, very technical, very granular, and very difficult. But that's it in a sentence. Let's do some related, not exact synonyms, but just some, can you suggest some related words to making something perform? Related
State report
verbs.
card.
Huh?
State report card results.
Well, that's an outcome, but give me some verbs that mean about the same thing as to make something perform. That's a metric of that.
Succeed.
You know,
Lead.
Support. To make the school.
Effective, efficiency, growth, achievement,
those are descriptions of
description.
something.
You said achieve.
Achieve, yes, achieve, yep.
Achievement, yeah.
How about execute?
And I was thinking Excel.
Sometimes people, but usually plans. In the words of the famous American business philosopher Larry the Cable Guy, get her done, make it happen. And to put it in simple terms, make it happen, get it done, bring it about, bring it to fruition, make it a reality. Take this charter proposal, 80, 90, 120 pages, whatever it is, and take that idea on paper and make it a reality here in this building. Okay, and I can't scroll this up now, can I, without
Just, you
doing
just
something?
have to put the pen away. And then,
Is it magnetic?
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
and then go back and push the mouse. Is that what he did, push the mouse?
Is that looks like an eraser there. Is, oh, that a mouse?
Yes.
Oh, that's great.
You can clear it. Oh, that's okay. I know we can leave that.
You with me so far?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it's still on the pad.
Still on the pen. Erase.
We pushed something last time. Did we push?
But could you still
Thought he
make it
pushed-
go from your computer?
Yeah,
Okay.
don't save,
Yeah.
because you erased it.
And now is it automatically?
Now, now.
Well, can you scroll it with using your computer mouse?
No, you had to go back, because this is an image. You had to close the image and go back to the original document.
But the image is closed.
No, I think you can scroll on your computer at
Yeah,
least.
the image just closed.
Okay.
Go back to your computer and try this.
Y'all, when I was young, we had chalkboards.
I had a whiteboard.
A whiteboard.
It's fancy.
That was high, that was
I was
high
learning
tech
to
in
talk
the
to
day
us.
of, uh-oh. That was high tech in the day of chalkboards. Well, I can do this in my head, so. It's block C, so the board's purpose now, the fact that I put Sherry's purpose for her role in a separate block than the board's purpose, I'm implying fairly straightforwardly, I'm implying that it is not the same purpose, or to say it differently, what I said a few minutes ago, the board's role is not Sherry's job, but more of it, or Sherry's job at a higher level. It's something different. So read the quote by John Carver, and like Clay, fill in the missing word. It is underway.
I know.
I noticed performance without even looking at the underline. So I'm still keeping my gold star.
I had
Yeah,
to
take
ensure
it back.
before I looked.
Can't be sure.
It's to ensure, right? Or if you prefer, you'd say to make sure.
Yes.
That's just a variation of the same thing.
Yeah.
By the way, I like though, you're gonna see these again, the two E's. In fact, when it was called the I hope model, when I had the purpose, so I had a column for management, column for the board's purpose, and the E in I hope was ensure, and management's purpose was execute, get it done.
Yeah.
Make sure, get it done. They're not an extension of each other. In fact, they really happen quite independently of the other, meaning that it is very possible in a church school setting for the management to be hitting the ball out of the park and the board not ensuring. I've also seen management, striking out at the plate year after year, and the board actually ensuring, usually you're replacing your manager at that point, actually ensuring. So the two things can actually be done quite independent of each other. In fact, that's why we call it an independent board. The word independent, when we use the phrase independent board, means independent of management, right? That's why we don't want Sherry's sister on the board or Sherry's husband on the board, et cetera, because at that point, the board's opinion influenced by that person, you could really call its independence into question. Is the board really acting independently in that context? All right, some words that mean about the same thing, not exact synonyms, but some related verbs. Think about verbs.
Guaranteed.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's one of my faves. One of my favorites right there. Can you give me an example for 10 extra points, Clay?
An example how we would guarantee.
Yeah, something you might guarantee.
That financial reports are being, help me with words.
You're on
So
the
we're
right-
looking at the
you're on the right track.
financials.
What do we do at the end of the financial year? At the
Audit.
end of the audit. So the board guarantees that the audit was completed and it doesn't have things that need to be fixed, right? What we call the management letter or management findings, right? That's absolutely, like, that's the board guarantee. You say, well, sure, I can do that. I can read an audit better than any of you. I'll bet you $1,000 I can read an audit better than any of you. But if I'm managing the school and I say, yep, the audit is good, I'm validating my own work. Well, what is independent about that? That's just an opinion of the guy who did the work, right? So that's where it's independent. That's a great example. When you look at test data and Sherry says, hey, here's our state report, we're good, right? And the board sees the data, and it's like, we've guaranteed it. Some other words, that's a good one. Some other words: assure, attest, validate, look into, examine, you could even swear to in some examples. Verify, that's a big one. Ooh, that V word, that's a big one right there. Verify. I remember this board meeting I sat in years ago, and it was a newer school, so you gotta sometimes give a little slack to newer schools because they're trying to get their feet under them and like figure out like what's the lay of the land here, right? And I'm sitting there and they go, okay, it's time for the financial report. And Bob, or whatever his name was, he goes, yeah, we're good, we got money in the bank, we're good. And the board said, okay, next item of business. I was like, whoa. Yeah, that wasn't a financial report. I don't even know what it was. An opinion about something? I'm not even sure what it was. You can't verify anything from the statement, we're in good shape, or we've got money in the bank, we're in good shape. What does that mean? How much money in the bank? What about that? What about are there any outstanding liabilities? I'm kind of having this issue right now. I'm on the board of directors, so being a Marine, I'm part of the Marine Corps League, Toys for Tots and all that. It's basically the nonprofit version. A bunch of old Marines sitting around telling more stories, most of which aren't even true. And so I'm on the board of directors, and the guy that is our basically our treasurer, we don't call him that, we have our own language, just like educators do. He's a retired CPA, so like the guy knows his stuff, right? But it just calls me every time we have a meeting, and they'll go treasurer report, and Charlie will go, we have $40,000 in the bank. Everybody goes, okay, next item of business. That's not a financial report. That's a statement of something. Yeah. It's not even proof of it. I can't even verify because you're just telling me. I can't even, let me see a bank statement. I can get him to do that without hurting his feelings. But anyway, we lost my screen and I couldn't figure out how to get it back, Nick. Okay. At the bottom of the page, in other words, if we're summarizing all of this, the role of the board is to provide oversight of management, not to be a participant in it. And you notice I put 2 stars by that one as if to say this is the key idea, like this is the big thing. However, you might be saying to yourself, and if you are, give yourself credit, guess what I still haven't done?
You just need to log back in on minutes.
Okay. What have I still haven't done that I said I was going to do at the outset of our time together? I still haven't told you where the lane lines are, have I? No. So let's make sure we understand the definitions in as few words as possible, aka Occam's razor. What is Sherry's job? I can say it in 3 words. That's her title.
Make it happen.
School perform.
Any way she wants?
Within parameters.
Within parameters, outcomes within parameters. That's her job. So school performance is outcome. Sorry, I skipped a block. School performance is outcomes within parameters. We look at both. We spend more time on the parameters, just the way the world is. We wish it weren't that way, but it is. What's her job? To produce those outcomes within parameters. What's the board's job? As simply as you can say it. Make sure they were produced. Yeah. By the way, you can't do that through verbal attestations. Making sure is not the same thing. It's more of show me, don't tell me. I'll sit in board reports, board meetings, and I'll see school leaders be like, um, you know, the kids are doing really well in reading. That's an assertion. But if you want me to believe that at the board level, I want to see some data. Show me, what data did you look at to arrive at that conclusion? That's a verification, right? Now you say, well, what if the school leader lies to us? It happens. And if that happens, then you have a different problem. You have a different problem that you'd have to deal with as a board, but it does happen.
Could I interject and say, would this be a good time that we could take a restroom break? We can go
No,
on at it for
no,
quite a while.
5 more hours.
I know we have a lot more to cover.
Yeah,
I
that's
didn't
fine.
know, would that be all right?
Yes,
for everyone
ma'am.
to take, like, 5 8 minutes?
For
Yes, restroom break.
You
on that.
lightweights.
Thank you. Well, he was getting the technology going, so, all right.
Personal needs?
All right, when we come back from your break, the long-awaited 4 lane lines.
You don't need this one anymore.
Uh,
It's back in.
Yeah, no, it's, I think that's the next part of the grant
Yeah,
package.
I was too.
You said the federal
Yeah.
inventory,
Thank
is
you.
out. Leave it on digitally.
I sent it to her as a PDF.
Can you send it to me?
Yeah. Now, I don't know if she edited anything. I gave her what I had, so.
Yep, that's all.
I know.
Oh, you know, and I'm up here moving around. I gotta lose the sweater now.
Yeah, I know. That's why it's funny because kids are always like, "Why is your room so cold?" I'm like, because like I move. I'm actively.
Freezing.
Well, I'm up there jumping around, getting my calisthenics.
I need to put those in report well, and I never thought about going by chocolate.
Chocolate is everybody's best friend.
I know, we should have thought about that. I know, I thought they were using it.
So the one thing that I've been trying to talk with Andrew about also is they should have all of that stuff that we purchased from them should have been in a like an inventory list. So he gave me one. Tracy never kind of verified if that was 100% good or not. But whatchamacallit, I'll send you the one that Andrew sent me, and I'll
We
send
just
you
need
this.
to combine them so I can.
Well, here's the thing, like she was doing all that. She was doing some of that. So I may have to
She'll
reach
be
out.
here- She'll be here Monday.
Okay,
so-
cool, yeah.
And I'm supposed to turn that in, so I just need to.
See, I thought she had to turn it in. That's what she told me she needed that to turn it in. She didn't
I
turn
have to
that
put
in
it
yet?
Report well.
Oh, okay. Is Report Well new?
It's
The new,
it's what we use with,
Yeah.
with limestone.
so I sent you the spreadsheet. I also sent you the form that Andrew sent me because she never got back. Well, she never mentioned that anything else needed to go. She said we were good to go. So, and going forward, Asset Tiger will be where everything gets exported from. We won't have to worry about it. The one thing, and I'll let you know as well, because little things, but like, I think I told you if I have, for example, the projector that's normally in here.
It's in here. I just put it on the bottom shelf.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So like because I noticed that, I guess when they did that info night last week, the PACE one,
Uh-huh.
there's a projector that they were using. I don't know where that projector is. So I got to make sure I
It's
know.
in that file. I
So,
know where it is.
Like I have that listed as admin offices, but for example, if that projector moved from admin offices to like in here, I have to go into Asset Tiger and change the location. So just little things like that. But as silly as it is, it's going to be like if we took this projector and decided it was going to be in like one of the downstairs rooms, I just have to know, and I'll go into Asset Tiger and change the location. But that'll be good because that way there's no question. They won't have to worry about where is your stuff.
Right.
It's all where it says it is in Asset Tiger.
Clay, have you and I met somewhere like an association conference? You look really familiar to me, like I feel like I should know you.
No, I teach elementary school right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will have met people years earlier at like an association conference. You just look familiar.
So I was researching some stuff this morning and I was trying to find a free, we've talked about like e-hall pass and stuff like that, like Bath Pass. And there's apparently an app that we can put onto Google Chrome. It's called Bladder Health Urine Tracker. The students would have to do it on their own.
Nick, is this the inventory you used with Tracy?
Yes.
Is this only 2 pages?
Which one?
The one you just sent me?
The spreadsheet?
Yeah, which one is it? The,
I sent you both. The one that I forwarded you from Andrew, it's everything we bought from them. The other stuff is all the stuff that we've had.
cause look, I'm looking at it. and it's just-
Well, there's tabs. There's like 9 different tabs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
That's
to
the one. So
upload this,
here's the biggest thing. Well,
I'm not gonna download this and upload this to Report Well. That's huge.
I don't know. I'll have to look. Well, yeah. So do we have to export it as a PDF to report well? Well, no. Go. No thanks. So when you go to file, you can basically download it as anything. When I sent it to her, this is the thing. Like
I was doing it as a PDF, but it only came up as a page.
Oh no. Go to PDF. Instead of current sheet, see where it says export. Do workbook.
Clay, do you guys still use pacing guides over in the
Scroll down
district?
to make sure it includes.
Big time?
I had to go through and mess with this.
And
So
are the pacing
because it
guides,
gives you blank
is the,
pages and stuff, but that is everything.
curriculum
That's the
alignment,
thing
is
we're
it
on
built
now.
into the pacing
Then
guide or is
you
that
go
a
to
separate
export.
document?
It's the
I had
same,
to sit there and mess with it.
It's
'Cause
the same
it will
Okay,
literally
now I
be-
can
but I'll tell you,
Yep,
every
now it
school,
should be,
will-
yep. So-
not every school follows it.
One of the biggest things that.
And
I
we
don't know
use it
whether
kind of
was-
as a guideline, but
It was like,
I mean, it really
every year
depends on
whenever
where
we
your
do
kids
that,
are.
all I
Like,
ever had to do was like add the new stuff.
I mean, like,
So when she.
I have a,
she's
I
like,
have a
well, you
student
should
who
have
has
this tab,
transferred
and I'm like, okay.
in the
And I'm
school
like, we
system
can do
3
it for
different
6
times,
years. Why are we
and
just
she
signing
is
up?
3 minutes
I
behind math.
have to always make
By the
sure
time she
that.
got to me a month ago.
Right.
So it's just,
The
yeah.
pacing guides are relevant for her.
Suggestions.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a suggestion,
So-
really. I mean, they're helpful in some ways, but,
Do you ever get, is that the extent to which you follow it or don't, is that factored in your PDEP evaluation, or is it just the
no, it's
the results that you get?
Yeah.
They should have been doing this. Now, he's looking at it, he's like, he's gonna jump on the computer and look at it, but I can go through and do it.
I just need to have it.
I'm gonna have it done today. That's okay. That way I'll have it done today. But in the future, I'll make sure he knows, like, hey, look, we have to do this stuff because.
Six hour report, that's just the same thing again, right?
But the inventory is something though that I'll make sure that anybody can see. I'll make sure you and Tracy have access to asset record because that way they have a question for you, you can hop, and it's all organized. It'll like, everything says where it is and you know, all that stuff, so.
I get paranoid if things aren't.
Yeah, no, like I said, that's the one, and I thought he had looked at it yesterday, and I thought he had gone through and filled stuff out. I checked it this morning, and he had.
And Scott,
There's two ones that are,
this room.
you know, applicable. I'm like, they're all applicable. And I told him, I said, you guys are our contracted ID company, they have specifically told me, you guys should be filling most of this out, so.
My office.
I don't know if
And it's like a nice-
my office is, but
Mine was the opposite,
So anyway.
so I'd look in Prince Hall,
Yeah,
nice and
I'll
cool,
have that
and
done
we
for
get
you
to my
today.
office.
Okay.
You could be my office and the office across
And
from
on
me.
top of it, make sure that.
right,
And
right.
so finally, I negotiated my office to be changed.
I'm
But
not
they
very
wanted me to
confident.
do something, I don't know if you want me to do that. What you do. And 2, you have to move my office, I can't stay in here anymore because it was so hot.
That was a one.
Yes, well, there was which is. It's just because you're talking. That's not true, because I went through it, so I don't know. So,
Just have to remind me that I'm gonna owe Deb money for the kids.
Oh, Lord, here.
No, 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 no,
I got
no,
money.
no, 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 budget, please.
Because you know, I was,
We got a budget. Anybody else? I'm just gonna
Because
go
you
grab
got-
handfuls. and
Jay was not gonna be mad at me.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell William.
I know.
I just went in and got some pizzas. Oh, that's why, once I knew it was in there, I'm like, oh.
Heck, yeah.
But when I do that, it's my lunch and dinner. I try. You know, it's so funny because I will sit here and try to eat healthy forever, and
and then I made that big.
I cannot get myself. It's not even like they say, like we eat a bunch of junk. The other stuff doesn't. The stuff that is healthy, I have never ever enjoyed. I wish I liked salmon. I wish I liked broccoli. Don't. It's disgusting. So I can do green chicken, romaine lettuce and spinach, and some rice, and that's about it. All the other really, really good stuff for you, doesn't,
You just don't like it.
and it's not even to the point where I could I could not eat salmon. I would not be able to finish it.
See, if you're unclear, that's all you eat.
Salmon?
I have the
Mhm.
retirees.
Anytime we, like, at home,
So
she,
they,
that's what they do, see what you want for dinner, that's what she'll say.
Yeah.
And when we go out to eat everywhere, it has to have seafood on the menu. or you won't eat it.
I always tell people very bluntly, if you look up meat and potatoes kind of identity, like I
Yeah.
eat a burger, a steak, chicken, and then
Yeah.
french fries, mashed potatoes. Like, I don't mind vegetables, but the vegetables I like are not really healthy. It's like corn,
Yeah.
it really doesn't have that health benefits and stuff like that. So,
Well, some vegetables.
There you go.
Yeah, that it has.
Take a picture.
Peanut M&Ms,
Coming
please.
through. Take a picture so I can replace it for
you
this.
know, M&Ms, I weekends had one every
Right.
day.
She won't take her ketos.
Proper accounting.
That's what I do, I mean, I eat a pack for lunch, and it's always something healthy, like, make it lunch, I don't really want it, but I
Not
mean.
only do you have chocolate, but you have
And then Graham.
Oh,
loves
yeah.
my-
I'm getting up there.
My
If I get my foot
And
out.
he stops at the vending machine.
Peanut M&Ms, please.
Yeah.
There comes an age of
And yeah,
once you get
I run
out there,
I'm
there's
sorry,
a
I'm
area
saying,
for
Mom,
the
you want
nice
some?
one.
Everybody ran to the chocolate.
They usually wrap before that. In my experience, they'll say, can you wrap this up before 30?
I have your digital.
Oh, yeah, 'cause you bit to-
I have plenty of peanut in there.
I look down.
Oh,
I grabbed.
I can have other peanut in there.
Yeah, I know, that's.
We'll wipe it down. We're adults, we'll clean up.
Yeah.
Nick, would you like anything?
No, I'm good. That's what I was just saying. I'm gonna say no to the sugar today with my 2 Mountain Dews on.
Ah.
I'm gonna
And
eat
there's
some of these
Kinder
M&Ms
Bar,
because you know,
and
you've
there's,
kind of
plate. You
observed how
like
low
Kinder Bar?
energy I am.
Yeah, those would have been my choice if I had not done this, so.
Dad is not forget me.
Right, if there's, I have other things in there.
No, I'm fine, I don't need to eat any of that.
It's being good.
Wait, stay strong. I'll play the drive. I'll go grab a few more things. I'll go get.
Dad will go get us.
I ran out of half and half this morning for my coffee, so I
Oh,
couldn't
no.
really drink it.
I would have been able to have any.
Yeah, but that, yeah.
I was like, really?
No, I can't.
I use one of those hall passes, you ever have to sit on the edge?
It looks like a Kit Kat.
Oh, no, there's so much.
Oh,
I
they're just,
ate one.
It is so much.
there's
And I
tons
don't
of
like
light.
it, but that's a little square.
Huh?
And the Gramps one, he does it. And then,
I want to feel that.
I don't know, I feel like.
I never
Looks like a
A lot of
thing.
them is, it almost requires teachers to be sitting
And fluffy.
Yeah.
because they have to
I
like
went old
request.
It's so
to go.
decadent.
And so I have to be sitting there, like, if I open them out, I'm not gonna see the requests.
What's
Right.
the
So that pops up, so I have to be like, oh, what, oh, let me.
Yeah, those are.
Yeah, math, how often?
I
Yeah,
feel like
well, I mean, again, when they're taking courses, yes, but no.
What are you trying to, what are you, what's the goal in using it?
Well, so the way most of them work, the great purpose that they
I know.
have is several things. If we wanted to say, hey,
Don't hang it.
you know.
No, I
here's
don't
our
know.
workout. First 20 minutes every time you go to that.
Right.
Is a place where like if you.
Or
were
chocolate,
shot in
or
the
chocolate,
hallway,
right.
It's gonna be like, nope, you're in the hallway. You can't go. It'll be
Yeah.
automatic. There's things that say like, no, you're not allowed to hit it. Stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
but it's basically to monitor the kids that wander for 45 minutes.
Right.
It's like coming back from a hunting trip.
They're neat. And it's really fun. That's the way my brain works. Like it's really weird. because I consider myself.
Like I got Skittles,
At the
Starburst.
same time, like I'm sure.
I'm just
Now-
trying to. I mean,
When they
you
ask me
came
these
with the
back- I
fruity
don't like
stuff after
my
we already
last
did.
Yeah,
You see that pass right there?
What?
Because I only have to answer 15 times. Can I go to the bathroom? Can I go to the bathroom?
You want any of these? I like that.
But,
I like it.
but yeah.
Yeah, and
that's-
also
that's-
that's just sure everything else.
I tell them,
I'm good at
I
that.
go to take the pass and I'm like, hey, wait a minute. They're like, yeah, otherwise if I don't save it. then I'm having a hard time because I'm like, you're not used to it. What am I gonna say?
Yes, there you go.
It's like a.
Yeah.
Share.
Those people are sitting, she teaches math, stuff like that.
Honestly,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
they touch the finger, can only
Yeah.
backwards.
Right.
That would be better for you. That would be better for you than eating like six.
One of my favorite.
It's,
All the way down.
it's 5 minutes almost just to get there.
Yeah.
And then.
Yeah.
come
And
back.
I
But you can also see,
sometimes
like,
go
there's
to my
some
office,
boys
but
that'll
my-
go, and they're gone for
my
less
admin
than.
works
Because I was
with
trying
kids.
to.
She
Why
always
don't-
goes by
There's a
in
guy
my
named
office,
Mr. Vince.
so she can have snacks but not have to leave her
Yeah.
office.
He's the teacher.
And I would get up
Everyone
from my
thinks, like,
desk and walk
Here are
across the
the,
room.
here are the words I'm hearing, but
Yeah.
he does skits, and so it's like, you know,
Um,
middle school,
So I
when you
know
go
I'm
to the
safe
bathroom,
eating
you
them.
just get-
And then
you
she
wipe
gets a
the
treat
floor.
when she does it, and I need her to be happy.
Hey, Steve, it's-
She's an amazing admin. And I just have her
Here's
here
that one out.
for her
That's
back.
what I'm
I
doing.
know, she's so fantastic. She just
And
takes
then,
everything.
on the way up the stairs, I saw this dude cut the hair off. I had to
5
get the
minutes
page
later,
on.
there's the
It's
cell
funny,
chart.
so that's what you can do.
She's so
Yeah,
amazing.
then,
Yeah.
it's
They're
very.
so decadent.
Yeah, that's your word to do.
I gotta say. this.
The
Well,
other
like,
thing-
I'm sitting here.
We touch things
Without permission.
without supervision.
That was funny.
I like that, and also this.
The whole time.
I feel like I'm
I
cheating now,
thought you
because
said
I do so much of
chance.
this, like.
Oh,
I do
I
board reports
Champs, yeah.
Like
for my daughters and they have 4 different accreditors.
hanging out.
And I was special budgeting the state.
Oh, okay.
And so I feel like I do a lot of this stuff.
Yeah.
Are y'all ready?
We're ready.
All right.
Ready, round 2.
Round 2. Bing, bing. See, we go till, is it 8?
You might get some more.
Yeah. I love this stuff. I mean, I don't know if it comes across, but I realize it's weird to stand in front of a group of people and talk governance and risk management and tell you folks, I love this stuff. Can't get enough of it. If you wanted to go till like 9 o'clock, I would be like, I'm down with it.
We'll see
Just
how long it lasts.
get a couple hamburgers in here and let this.
Maybe it wasn't Saturday, like during the week, and I'm already at work, I think that would be nothing. Well, I don't know, I'll speak for everybody, yeah.
All right, so the lane lines, let's see here. I'm gonna see if I can just make this a midge bigger. That's just a midge, right? Smidge, okay. It's not, yeah, you got your hand up. So, all right, so the lane lines, we've got the acronym CHAMPS.
Oh, never mind.
We've got the acronym CHAMPS for both the board's lane and management's lane, and then we're going to sort of compare and contrast these dimensions over here. It's kind of the where, what, who, when, why, kind of like a reporter's questions. Now, in the handout, in the Kindle publication, again, if you want the free Kindle version, just send me an email. I'll send you the Kindle version for your iPad of that, the CHAMPS model. You might see a little bit of variation in, like, I'm still trying to figure out, is this more of a where, is this more of a when? So you might see a little variation in that publication, but the rest of it is basically the same. We're going to start, we'll just start at the top, or at the beginning, as Julie Andrews says. That's a very good place to start. It's like purple. So use of authority. Now this is one of those subtle things, like you cannot blame people for joining a board and not knowing this, unless they're an attorney. Any attorneys in the room? Oh, man, no accountants, no attorneys. Attorneys know this, but it's not like common knowledge. This is like some esoteric knowledge, you know, and there was a time when I didn't know it, and it was confusing to me as a young school leader. I'm like, I don't get this. So there's actually a difference in the nature of authority or the use of authority. The board, if you ever had like a business law class or something, and you remember back in Western jurisprudence, a corporation of any kind, nonprofit, you guys are a nonprofit corporation, a corporation is an artificial person, right? You can sue and be sued like a real person. You can hold property, you can sell property, you can transact things, and the law treats it literally as an artificial person. And the idea of that, we first see that in Western law in around the year 1601, and it was really the rise of the corporate model in the United Kingdom or Great Britain, the British Empire. And it was really about limited liability. It was like, can you be a part of a corporation but not be liable for the acts of that corporation? That's kind of how it started. You've heard the name, by the way, you've heard the name of the company. It's the first incorporation in modern times, the way we use the term in 1601. You've heard the name of the company. They were second. Who was the other one right before them? The British East India Tea Company.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's right.
first corporation in the modern world. Anybody know how long that corporation lasted? Like when they went out of business?
2020.
No.
Oh my God.
They lasted 275 years.
See, I was-
The corporation lasted longer than the United States has been a country. We're coming up on 250, I think it is, right? A corporation has lasted longer than the United States has actually been a country. So it's a pretty phenomenal concept. But the law recognizes, it still does, that when you have a group of people that are the voice of this artificial person, the difficulty becomes like, well, how do we know what the artificial person says or does? And the answer to that, it took a little bit of time. It wasn't like fully fleshed out from day one, 1601, January 1st on. But over time, the idea began to flesh out that only the votes of the board constituted the artificial person speaking, right? So every time, like you guys voted on a couple things to approve your charter contract with SBCSD, right? So to put it in our terms, the artificial person called whatever name you guys are incorporated under, it may or may not be CHS, but that artificial person spoke. As far as the law is concerned, it spoke. You had a properly noticed meeting at which a quorum was present. The item was listed as an agenda item, and the board voted to approve it. So legally, the corporation spoke today. By the way, that is the only time that the board can properly be said to have spoken. And we'll talk about that concept a little bit later. So the use of authority, and I'll tell you why I call this the where in just a minute, which may seem a little odd to you for that construct. The use of authority, the board's lane is, it is a collective. We could even, if you wanted to, sort of like put it on steroids, it's an individual collective, right? It's the board. In fact, if you want to get really technical, like if you look at the technical writings about boards and about governance, the proper pronoun for a board is not they, because they is the third person plural pronoun, which means more than one. The proper pronoun for a board is actually it. Third person singular pronoun, it. How did the board vote? It voted to blah, 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 blah. How did the court vote? It voted to, not they. We say they just in our sort of the way we talk. It's actually not a they, it is a true it. So the board is an individual collective, which almost is a paradoxical set of words when you put them in a sentence, right? Because collective implies more than one piece, but individual modifies it. It's actually the adjective, individual collective, but that's how the law views you. This is why in board minutes, you don't really need to write what people say. In fact, if you were a governance geek like me and you read Robert's rules just for fun, like I do, you would see that it's actually improper parliamentary procedure to put what individual board members say, other than motions and seconds. The only other thing you put, technically, in true parliamentary procedure, the motion, the second, and the vote. In fact, and I even had fun with an authorizer one time because they had sort of dinged this board client of mine because they weren't listing this person, they weren't listing who introduced who seconded the motion. They would just say, motion by so-and-so, up or down, they would vote. And they dinged him, and I wrote the authorizer letter and said, actually, if you look at Robert's rules, which is the form of parliamentary authority they were using, the second, you don't even have to record the second, because in parliamentary procedure, the person making the motion is generally thought to be in favor of it, although it's not necessarily a hard and fast rule, but they're thought to be in favor of the thing that they're moving. And the person who's making a second in parliamentary procedure, all they're doing is saying, yes, I agree, the board should go ahead and take this up for a vote. They may not even agree with the motion, but yes, I think the board should say something about this. And then you vote, you talk, the chair says, all right, is there any discussion? People say, yeah, blah, blah, blah. All right, is there a motion? We have a motion to do blah, it's been seconded, all in favor, all opposed, all right, motion carried, blah, blah, blah. So it's collective, individual collective. This is why when I said earlier, like if you get into a litigation situation and you do something as an individual board member, you're really walking on thin ice. You're really taking a chance, because the law may look at it, the insurance company may look at it and say, you're acting outside the scope of authority, because you can bet the insurance company employs high dollar attorneys who know that boards are a collective. And they love it when, the attorney for the plaintiff, and you get an individual board member doing or something, they just love that, because we can just isolate, you did that, awesome, let's have a talk. Good, reach for your wallet, because we're gonna take some of your money now.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely, you can even ask two.
Oh, okay, so I know according to Robert's rules, you have to introduce a motion and second it before you can discuss it.
Correct.
But if you're taking the minutes, should you be putting a bulleted point list of the thing, not who said it, but what the general things were discussed? Not
according to Robert's rules, but I have seen some South Carolina statute, the nonprofit statute, that wants you to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And no, it's a great question, Dr. Horton. The other thing too is, as a board member, sometimes, you'll be opposed to something, and you may feel very strongly about a thing, and it's perfectly proper within parliamentary procedure as well as the law in South Carolina that you can say, I'm opposed to it for this reason, and I would like this statement recorded in the minutes. So you can say, I'm opposed to it because, that company that you're proposing that we contract with is from what I've read, is widely suspected of fraud, and I'm opposed to entering a contract with them, or something like that. You can say, I want that in the minutes that I said that. But mostly, obviously, it's pretty unusual. And there might even be some instances where you have a couple of no votes, and they'll say, I'd like my name recorded as the no vote. Normally, it's not necessary. You can just say motion carried. But some people say, I'd like my no vote recorded, sort of for the record. Now, management is not a collective. It is a collection. So the board is an individual collective. Management is a collection of individuals. I mean, you got to give it to me. Is that not just a brilliant verbal?
Fantastic. Wordsmith that so well.
Thank you. I'm very proud of it. I mean, think of a management team where, like, picture this in your head, right? So you have a school leader, and she's, got a team of, say, in a bigger school, like you might have a team of, say, 5 or 6, something comparable to a board, right, in terms of head count, right? So say she's got 5 or 6 other, like, managers, whatever they're called, principal, whatever, right? So you're going to sit around and, you're going to have meetings, right? The board has meetings. You're going to talk about stuff, and then people will take notes, and then you're going to go out and do stuff, and then you're going to come back and talk about the stuff that you did and take some more notes, right? It looks like a board so far. It looks like a board, it walks like a duck, but can you picture like a management team where every single thing that it did had to be voted on and agreed upon by a majority of the people? Like, that would be a weird corporation. It almost sounds like cult-like, right? That would just be weird. Like, nobody does that. You say, well, Brian, what about, Democratic, or there was a management term a while back, a flat organization where there's no hierarchy. I always say to people, you haven't been managing things very long if you think a flat hierarchy is possible. Never seen it work. I'm 66 years old. I'm saying I might not see it work somewhere, but I've never seen it work. I've only ever seen hierarchy actually work and succeed. And the more you try to flatten it and make it so there is no authority, the bigger a nightmare the sucker becomes. I mean, it'll turn into like a blob from the movie where it's like, you know. So management is a collection of individuals. The board is an individual collective. So management's use of authority is very much tied to their individual position on the org chart, right? So an executive director, a chief operating officer, a chief academic officer, whatever, the size of the school, right? And we know we can look at the org chart and we say, well, she has more authority than him because she's there and he's there. Now here's what throws boards. We look at an org chart, any school org chart, and we see the board of directors up at the top, and then we see principal, and then we see some organizational configuration. We go, board's at the top. So that means if I tell the principal what to do, can I pick on you, Christy? You seem like somebody who can handle it. So Christy is a board member. So Christy goes, dude, look at the org chart. The board is at the top. So if I tell Sherry what to do, I'm a board member. She's obligated to follow it, right?
Nope.
How many people think she is obligated to follow it? How many people, raise your hand. I want you to commit. How many people think she is not obligated to follow it?
If it's just one person
If it's
from the
one
board,
person,
it's just one.
It's just Christie.
If it's
Yeah.
just one person.
Commit.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
I just got the card.
We're over a second. How do I get the mouse back? Oh, there it is.
Yeah, so what happens when you, like I said,
We're
when you
good.
use this, what happens?
We're good. I got the mouse where I want it.
Yeah,
We're good.
it screenshots it, basically it freezes where you were.
Thank you for your patience. You may talk quietly among yourselves.
It's scattered all over. It's scattered all over. Thank goodness for something.
This is your,
What do you do with her?
how do I just drag it over there?
No, I was gonna say it. So right now, whenever you use that, it freezes whatever's there. So you have to go back and it's gonna wipe all that away.
Okay.
So
we're
that's-
all right.
That's the only downfall to these.
All right.
There you go.
This is the board survey that you all took. And here's a question, you know.
There you go.
That was Sherry, right?
I don't disclose any individual responses. What is the correct answer to this question?
Disagree.
Yeah, the correct answer is disagree. How, like, why? Like, tell me why. Explain to me why. It's not enough that you know the answer. Tell me why. No, you don't count. Why?
We're policy, she's procedures. So
No.
we can't tell her what to do in the
No.
building.
Nope.
Because it says I.
We're an entity as a collective, an individual collective.
Yep.
Not an individual.
Collection, not a collection of individuals. You're an individual collective. So unless the board has voted, the
Yeah.
board has not spoken. Now, in real life, we understand power differentials. We're all adults, right? Most of the time, as a school leader, unless they're like suicidal, if a board member says, I'd really like it if, you were outside more in dismissal, waving bye-bye, to families. Most school leaders are going to be like, okay, and they'll do it. The problem is when that becomes the culture in the boardroom, you've now relegated your chief executive to basically trying to satisfy the preferences, expectations, and will of 9 individuals instead of one individual called the board. Really critical thing. And again, I'm not sharing this with you as like these sort of abstractions. Going back to my original premise, we're looking at a 50% failure rate of charter schools across the U.S. inside 15 years. And if you said to me, Brian, what do you think is going on? That's something I see all the time. The board is acting like a collection of individuals toward the person. They're burning them out. They're churning through them at the rate of 1 every 12 to 36 months. They get a new person in, that creates operational chaos. They try to fix some things, they change the things, they burn the person out, talking to them as individuals instead of as a collective. And it's actually surprising that the failure rate of charters isn't greater than 50%.
So if you have a board chair who, not you, Rita, but if you have a board chair who is every year or so deciding they don't like the principal and they're running them out the door, that's a bad chair. They shouldn't be a chair.
Absolutely.
They should be removed probably from the board.
Absolutely. Certainly from being chair. Yeah, the chair, and I see this, I don't think it's in your guys' bylaws because I know your attorney, very well. And so she would know better than put the bylaws, but I read bylaws all the time that say the chair will supervise the school leader in between. What? What? First of all, you just dumped a boatload of liability on her, and you just made her an unaccountable, unqualified superintendent. And good luck with that model. And that's what charter schools are doing. Like, this is like everywhere. All right, so collective versus collection. Primary focus. Now, this has a caveat. And I didn't tell you about the where. I told you I was going to tell you about the where. I chose that. I don't know what you call that group of words. They're not like location words, but when, where, why, how, what, whatever you call that group of descriptors. I chose where. It wasn't originally sort of like obvious that I should do that. In fact, this used to be the how dimension, but I realized the where actually works pretty well because for the board, there's only one place where it can be said to have spoken. In the boardroom. In a properly noticed meeting at which a quorum is present and the item is on the agenda. Notice all 3 conditions. At a properly noticed meeting at which a quorum is present as an item on the agenda. We don't get to come into a board meeting and say, I won't talk about this. In fact, that's why you approve an agenda. Because I may be on a board and I know that, Bob's hobby horses, he doesn't like, he thinks that we should have all petunias out front instead of dogwoods or something. And every board meeting, Bob's on the petunia thing and right?
I wish that weren't true.
Me too, except then I might be unemployed. I don't know. A board years ago, different school, a client, and this guy, he didn't get elected, but he came. The board requires, and this is a recommendation you're going to get from me in my follow-up report, is that you change your bylaws to say to be eligible to serve on the board, you must attend a 4-hour orientation prior to getting on the ballot. So that way you eliminate write-ins, right? So I've been doing this with a handful of clients. So Bob shows up to, I think the guy's actual name was Bob. He shows up to this training, and so we were all like doing introductions. I was doing the training, he was doing introductions. He goes, yep, if I get on this board, we're gonna have a soccer field out front. And I was like, yeah, Bob, actually, you have nothing to say about it. Properly noticed meeting at which quorum is present on the agenda. So soccer field isn't on the agenda. How do you get it added to the agenda? Say you really want to talk about it. You're like, and what does an amendment require? Majority vote. I agree. Let's talk about it. Right. That's what the amendment would be like. Yes, I agree. It doesn't mean I agree with whatever, the petunia or the soccer field. It just means like, okay, I agree. Let's talk about it. And sometimes with some board members, you just have to like roll over and say, okay, we'll put it on the agenda, even though it's going to get shot down, right? You still, and it's kind of their right in a sense to say, I really feel like we ought to talk about this as a board. It doesn't impose the requirement for the whole board, but at least it is sort of like their right to say, I want to talk about it. Anyway, so I call it the where because the only time the board directs Sherry to make this unique to CHS is any properly noticed meeting at which a quorum is present and a vote is taken. And the board then has spoken, and everything else is just chatter. Right now, she may still do it. Like, Jill may call her and say, I think that, I had a board member say this to me once, and I did it. Just, try to, make a little piece. She said, I really think we need a trash can out in front of the school. She had observed, her kids being dropped off and, kids throwing litter on the ground. And there was something in what she said, and I can't remember what it was, but she said something like a nice trash can, or she gave it like some descriptor. It was like, okay, so she didn't want like like an industrial gray, And so I looked online, and you can buy like these trash cans with the lid is somehow like staying attached to it, but then there's like thing you put in it, and they were a ridiculous price, like I don't know, $700 or something compared to like a hefty gray thing. But I was like, okay, and I put it out there. But here's the thing. Both she and I and my board, we all three understood I was not obligated to do that. Not for a minute. Just because she suggested it, or because she thought it was a good idea, or because she wanted it. You say, well, Brian, what if the board wants you to put a trash can? Then you put a trash can out. How do I know that's what the board wants?
It's on the agenda.
I move that we put a trash can out front, and let's get the expensive kind. All in favor? Discussion? Vote? Aye. Motion carried. Now I know the board's told me to put a trash can out front. All right, collective collection. All right, the primary focus. The key to understanding this is to not trip over the word primary, as in it doesn't never proposition. This is a basic idea. Primary focus. Now, I'm actually going to do something here. And when I used to do this as the I Hope model,